My name is Arden Vale, 32 years old. The morning the call came, sunlight cut through my kitchen blinds in sharp stripes across the table. My coffee steamed in its chipped mug, and for a fleeting second I thought the day would be ordinary. Emails, meetings, the familiar grind. But that was before my phone lit up with my sister's name, glowing like a warning signal. Karen never called just to talk. She called because she needed. I answered with a cautious, "Hey," bracing myself. Her voice exploded through the line, breathless, giddy. "Arden, guess what? I quit my job." I nearly dropped the mug. Coffee sloshed against the rim. "You what?" "Karen, what are you talking about?" "I quit," she sang, stretching the word. "Walked right into my manager's office this morning and told him I was done. No 2 weeks. Nothing. Just done. I'm free." My stomach sank. "Karen, how are you going to pay rent? Feed Jake and Tommy?" She laughed, light and dismissive, like I had told the world's best joke. "Oh, don't worry about that. You're going to support me, just for a while, until I get my strength back and figure out what's next." I stared at my phone as if it had grown fangs. "I'm sorry, I'm going to what now?" "Come on, Arden. I've been working nonstop since the divorce. I deserve a break. You make good money. You've got that house. You can cover me until I'm ready to get serious again." The old sickness pooled in my gut. The same feeling from childhood when Karen cornered me into doing her homework, her chores, her everything. "Karen, I am not going to support you. That's insane. You have 2 kids. You have responsibilities." Her voice shifted, sharpening like glass. "Well, if you won't help willingly, I'll just call Mom and Dad. They'll make you do the right thing." Click, she hung up. The silence afterward roared. I sat there frozen, mug cooling in my hand, dragged backward through years of unequal footing. As kids, the favoritism was never subtle. When Karen struggled with math, I was told to do her homework, just to keep her grades afloat. When she wanted piano lessons, and I did too, they said we could only afford 1 set, and naturally, they went to her. On my 16th birthday, I was promised I could share her car, though it was always her keys hanging by the door. When college came, they paid her tuition in full. Mine? Loans stacked like bricks on my back. Even as adults, the pattern stuck. Every success of mine became a resource to funnel into her failures. So when my phone buzzed again 30 minutes later and Mom's name appeared, I already knew whose story she'd heard. I answered anyway. "Arden Marie Vale, what is wrong with you?" Her voice thundered before I could even breathe a greeting. "Hi, Mom," I said, flat. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb with me." Karen called me in tears. "She said you refused to help her in her time of need. How could you be so selfish?" I pressed my fingers to my temple. "Mom, she quit her job without having another one lined up. She expects me to pay all her bills while she takes a vacation. She is not taking a vacation. She's been through a horrible divorce. She needs time to recover. You have a good job, a house. The least you can do is help your sister." "Help her? Mom, she wants me to support her completely while she refuses to work. That's not help. That's enabling." "Well, that's too bad," Mom snapped, voice tightening, "because we've already decided. Karen and the boys are moving in with you. You have that big bedroom upstairs. They can stay there." The words slammed into me like a fist. "They're what? Mom, nobody asked me about this." "We're not asking, Arden. We're telling you. Karen needs a place, and you have room. This is my house, my mortgage, my space. Family helps family, and Karen would do the same for you." "No, she wouldn't," I whispered, more to myself than to her. Then another voice joined in, the heavy bass of my father. "Arden, clean out that bedroom. The boys will need space for their things." My pulse thudded in my ears. "Dad, I don't want anyone living in my house." "Too bad," he barked. "Karen's your sister, and those are your nephews. Stop being so damn selfish." The call ended with a click, final and merciless. I sat in my car in the work parking lot, staring at the dashboard, vision blurring. The same cycle, replaying again. Karen leapt without looking, and I was expected to catch her. But this time something inside me shifted. I remembered a conversation with my boss, Tom, months earlier. He'd offered me a transfer to our company's office in another state, Denver. Back then, I'd refused because of the house. The dream home I'd finally claimed after years of scraping. But now, that house was no longer sanctuary. It was a target, a possession my family believed was theirs to redistribute. I took a shaky breath and climbed out of the car, walked back inside the office, and knocked on Tom's door. He looked up from his screen. "Arden, what's up? Remember that transfer you offered me? The Denver office? Is the position still open?" His eyebrows shot up. "It is. Why? Interested now?" Very, I said. My voice trembled, but I held his gaze. How soon could I start? Tom leaned back in his chair, lips curling into a half smile. Hell, you could start Monday if you want. Been holding that spot, hoping you'd change your mind. I swallowed, pulse racing. Then yes, I'll take it. All right, he said, reaching for the phone. I'll make the calls. When I left his office, my hands shook. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was adrenaline. By the time I reached my desk, I was already drafting lists, call Mike about tenants, pack essentials, arrange storage, ship boxes ahead. I had 1 week, maybe less, before Karen and my parents showed up at my doorstep with suitcases and expectations. This time I wouldn't be waiting on the porch. This time I'd be gone. By the time I pulled into my driveway that evening, the decision had solidified like concrete in my chest. I was leaving. Not someday, not when things got unbearable, now. The house greeted me in its usual silence. Oak floors glowing faintly under the hall light, the faint lemon scent from the cleaner I'd used over the weekend still hanging in the air. It should have felt like comfort, but tonight every creak and shadow reminded me that my family saw these walls as theirs. A nursery for Karen's boys, a safety net for her bad choices, a resource waiting to be claimed. Not anymore. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table and dialed Mike, my friend in real estate. He answered on the second ring, his voice brisk as always. Arden, to what do I owe the pleasure? I need a favor, I said. My words tumbled out faster than I expected. I need tenants for my house. Good ones. Reliable. Preferably yesterday. There was a pause. Tenants? You just bought that place. What's going on? It's a long story, I muttered, glancing toward the upstairs landing, as if Karen and the boys were already camped there. But I need to move quickly, like this week. Mike whistled low. All right, I'll see what I can do. When we hung up, I stared at the empty screensaver dancing across my laptop. The house looked the same, but I could already feel myself detaching. It wasn't mine anymore. Not really. It was bait. The next morning at work, I cornered Tom to finalize the transfer. You're sure about this? He asked, sliding a manila folder across his desk. His expression was searching, almost paternal. As sure as I've ever been about anything, I said. My voice steadied as I added, if I don't go now, I'll never get out. He nodded slowly, as if weighing more than the professional implications. Denver's a smaller office, but solid. You'll do well there. Then, with a wry smile, sometimes distance is the only thing that buys peace. I almost asked if he'd ever had to run from his own family. Instead, I signed the forms and shook his hand. The next few days blurred into frantic motion. I called in sick and devoted every waking hour to packing. Cardboard towers rose in every room. I labeled each box with sharp black marker. Essentials. Storage, Denver. At night, lying awake, I imagined headlights sweeping across the driveway. Karen's minivan pulling in. My parents' sedan right behind it. Them knocking, then pounding, then letting themselves in with the spare key I knew Mom still had. That thought propelled me faster. I packed only what I couldn't live without. Clothes, documents, laptop, a shoebox of childhood photos. The rest, furniture, decor, even my grandmother's china, would stay behind for the tenants. My house wasn't a fortress anymore. It was a stage set I was abandoning mid-performance. By Wednesday, Mike called with news. I've got a couple interested. Married, 1 kid. He's in IT, she's a teacher. They've been searching for a rental in your area for weeks. Seems stable. Do you want to meet them? Yes, I said without hesitation. As soon as possible. We arranged a viewing for Thursday afternoon. They arrived precisely on time. A trim man with tired eyes and a gentle smile. His wife, warm and pragmatic. Their daughter, a small figure clutching a stuffed rabbit, staring up at the bay window as if she'd found a castle. This is beautiful, the wife murmured, trailing her fingers along the crown molding. Perfect for us. Safe neighborhood, the husband added, close to her school. I nodded, forcing a polite smile while my heart hammered. I'm glad you like it. I just need someone who will take care of it. As they walked through the rooms, their voices echoed faintly. For them, this house was a promise. For me, it was already a memory. By the end of the tour, they were ready. First and last month's rent, up front, papers signed. They could move in by the weekend. When they left, I leaned against the door and exhaled for what felt like the first time all week. Relief mingled with something sharper. Grief, maybe. I had worked so hard for this house, but letting it go felt like the only way to reclaim myself. That night, I sat cross-legged on the living room floor, laptop glowing in front of me. I opened a folder of scanned documents: mortgage, lease agreements, insurance. I saved copies to a flash drive and whispered to the empty room, just in case. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Karen wouldn't accept my escape quietly. My parents wouldn't either. They'd show up, find strangers in my home, and rage like the world had betrayed them. But by then, I would be gone. Friday morning, I loaded the last of my boxes into the car. The walls looked bare, hollow. I lingered for a moment at the foot of the stairs, listening. Silence. For once, it didn't feel oppressive. It felt like possibility. I locked the door, slid the key into an envelope for the tenants, and tucked it under the mat. My hands trembled, but I didn't look back as I climbed into the car. The road stretched ahead, gray ribbon unraveling toward Denver. 1 week earlier, I had been the dutiful daughter, the fallback plan, the family's safety net. Now I was running, not away from responsibility, but toward freedom. And though fear clung to me like a second skin, another feeling stirred beneath it. Exhilaration. Denver greeted me with thin air and sharp sunlight. The mountains loomed in the distance, jagged and immovable, as if to remind me that permanence could exist outside family ties. My first morning there, I sat on the floor of a small rented apartment, surrounded by cardboard boxes that smelled faintly of ink and dust. The Wi-Fi technician muttered in the corner as he set up the router. Outside, traffic hummed, a different rhythm from home, but steady, almost comforting. For the first time in years, my phone was silent. No Karen demanding, no mom chastising, no dad commanding. Just silence. It should have felt lonely. Instead, it felt like oxygen filling lungs that had been starved too long. Work at the Denver office was simple enough. Smaller team, less pressure, but familiar systems. On my second day, a colleague named Holly brought donuts and smiled shyly as she set the box on my desk. Welcome gift. Nobody ever brings new people treats anymore. Thought I'd be old-fashioned. Her kindness startled me. At home, kindness always had strings. Here, it was just powdered sugar on a cardboard lid. That afternoon, as I walked back from lunch, my phone buzzed. Mike's name lit the screen. I answered quickly. Hey, how's everything back at the house? There was a pause, then his voice, wry, careful. Got good news and potentially dramatic news. My chest tightened. Start with the good. Your tenants are settled in. They love the place. Rent already transferred this month. Solid people, just like I thought. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. And the dramatic news? He cleared his throat. Yesterday afternoon, a woman showed up with 2 kids and what looked like half a U-Haul truck. She started banging on the door, demanding to be let in. My stomach plummeted. Karen, assuming so, the tenants called me. Panicked, obviously. This woman was yelling that it was her sister's house. She had every right to live there. The tenants explained they'd signed a lease with you, that you'd moved. But she wouldn't listen. I pressed a hand to my forehead. What happened? Well, then an older couple showed up. I'm guessing your parents. Of course, the cavalry. They had a full-blown argument on the front lawn. Neighbors started peeking out. Quite the show, from what I hear. Eventually they left, but not before scribbling my number off the rental sign. So, brace yourself. I laughed, a jagged, disbelieving sound. They thought they could just drive up and move in, like I'd wait with open arms. They're determined, Arden. I'd be careful. That night, the calls started. First Mom, then Dad, then Karen, one after the other, like a carousel of demands. I let them all go to voicemail. When the texts rolled in, I scrolled with detached calm. Mom, Arden, call me right now. We went to your house and strangers are living there. Where are you? Dad, this is ridiculous. Call us back immediately. Karen, I can't believe you would do this to me. I have nowhere to live and you just disappeared. I set the phone down, stared at it glowing on the counter, then typed one reply to Mom. I moved. Stop looking for me. And turned the phone face down. The next morning, I woke to 12 missed calls and 23 new texts. Each message blurred into the next. Guilt, anger, manipulation. Karen, the tenant said you moved somewhere but wouldn't say where. This is so messed up. Mom, you better explain yourself right now, young lady. Dad, you can't just run away from your responsibilities. Karen, Jake and Tommy are asking where Aunt Arden went. What am I supposed to tell them? I read them all with a kind of numb fascination, like examining old scars. For years, those words would have pierced me. Selfish, irresponsible, cruel. But now they sounded hollow. I had been responsible. Too responsible. I had carried them so long my own shoulders were raw. And selfish? Maybe. But sometimes survival looks selfish to those who thrived on your sacrifice. That evening, I took a walk through my new neighborhood. Small bungalows lined the street, their yards tidy, but not manicured. A couple sat on their porch, sipping wine, laughing softly. A boy rode past on a bicycle, his sneakers flashing in the streetlights. Normal lives. Families who might bicker about chores, but who didn't demand entire houses, paychecks, or futures. I envied them. I also pitied myself for all the years I believed my family's version of love was the only kind that existed. But even in Denver, freedom carried shadows. At work, I caught myself flinching whenever my phone buzzed, expecting another demand disguised as a plea. At night, I dreamed of Karen's voice, sharp with entitlement, Mom's voice shrill with accusation. Once, in the grocery store, I thought I saw my father's profile in the produce aisle. My breath caught until the stranger turned, revealing unfamiliar eyes. They weren't here, but the possibility that they could show up lingered like smoke. 1 week after the house confrontation, Mike called again. "They haven't tried to come back," he said, "but your mom did leave me a voicemail. Wanted your forwarding address. Claimed it was urgent. I didn't give it." "Thank you," I said, meaning it more than he knew. "They won't stop, though. They never stop." His voice softened. "What are you going to do?" I stared out the window at the mountain range, dark blue against the sunset. For now, ignore them. Build a life here. Prove to myself I can. But inside, I knew the storm hadn't passed. It had only changed shape. Because if my family couldn't reclaim my house, they'd find another way to reclaim me. The first strike didn't come by phone. It came online. It was a Sunday evening, my 3rd week in Denver. I had just settled with a glass of wine and a mystery novel when a notification pinged. My cousin Lisa had tagged me in a comment. Curiosity nudged me to check. And there it was, a long, dramatic Facebook post from Karen. Well, I guess I know where I stand with some people. I quit my job because I was burned out after my divorce and my own sister refused to help me. Now I have no income, nowhere to live with my 2 young children. Some family support system, right? I guess money is more important than family to some people. The words glared at me from the screen, laced with just enough truth to hook sympathy, stripped of every inconvenient detail. Comments piled below like vultures. "OMG, Karen, that's horrible. Your sister sounds selfish AF. Family should always come first. So sorry you're going through this." Even Mom had clicked like. My stomach twisted. I shouldn't have cared. But seeing strangers judge me, without knowing about the house, the years of sacrifice, the endless pattern, it cut deeper than I expected. I scrolled further, pulse pounding, until I saw a comment from Lisa herself. "Wait, didn't you quit your job without having another one lined up? And don't you get alimony for the boys?" Then Uncle Mark chimed in. "Karen, you chose to quit. That's not Arden's responsibility to fix." Aunt Sarah, I love you both, but Arden shouldn't have to support you indefinitely, just because you need a break. Relief prickled through me. Finally, voices of reason. But it was drowned beneath a tide of Karen's friends, all parroting her victimhood. I closed my laptop, heart racing. The old sickness stirred again, the one that told me I was the villain, always the villain. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe I should have let her and the boys move in. Maybe. But then another memory surfaced. 6 months earlier, after her divorce papers had finalized, Karen had called me sobbing. She couldn't cover rent, couldn't pay utilities. I'd sent her $1,000 without hesitation. She'd promised to pay me back once she got back on her feet. She never did. That money had been the last of my savings. I'd eaten instant noodles for weeks afterward to make it through until payday, and she'd never once asked how I was doing. The guilt faded into something steadier. Anger sharpened into clarity. By midweek, the post had spiraled. Some cousins defended me, some stayed silent, and a few distant relatives joined Karen's choir of outrage. The family tree felt like it was splitting down the middle. Lisa messaged me privately one evening. "Don't let it get to you. Most of us know the truth. She's just trying to paint you as the bad guy." "Thanks," I typed back. "It still stings." "I know. But remember, when people lose control, they get loud. She's loud because she's desperate." Her words stuck with me. Desperate. Yes. Karen wasn't just angry. She was cornered. And cornered people claw harder. The next weekend, as I was unpacking the last of my boxes, another notification lit my phone. A cousin had commented under Karen's post, "Isn't your mom still working at the department store? And didn't your dad's hours get cut? Sounds like everyone's struggling." Karen replied quickly, "Yes, and Arden knows that, but she doesn't care." Reading it, something clicked in me. It wasn't just about Karen's pride. My parents' finances were unraveling too, and suddenly I understood why they had been so insistent about moving her into my house. It wasn't only about helping Karen, it was about keeping the whole fragile ship afloat, with me as the life raft. That realization chilled me more than the insults in Karen's post. Because if they were desperate enough, guilt and shame wouldn't be their only weapons. They'd escalate. They always did. On Monday, Holly at work leaned over my cubicle wall. "Rough morning?" I realized my shoulders were hunched. My phone clenched so tight the case creaked. I forced a smile. "Just family drama. The usual." She gave me a knowing look, one that said she had her own stories but wouldn't pry. "Well, if you ever need a drinking buddy, I make a mean margarita." Her kindness startled me again. Simple, unearned. It almost broke me. "Thanks," I whispered, and meant it. That night, I sat at my desk, scrolling through the chaos on Facebook one last time. Karen's post, her friend's venom, my family's divided loyalties. My cursor hovered over the deactivate account button. But I didn't press it. No, I wasn't going to vanish just because she shouted louder. I wasn't going to erase myself from the story she was rewriting. Instead, I clicked log out and whispered to the quiet apartment, "Let them talk. I know the truth." Still, as I turned off the lamp and crawled into bed, I couldn't shake one thought. If they were desperate enough to drag me through social media mud, what would they try next? The answer came 2 days later, hidden in a memory I had almost forgotten. 6 months before all this, Mom and Dad had called me in a panic. Dad's company had cut his hours down to part-time. Mom's paycheck from the department store barely covered groceries. Their mortgage was falling behind. "Just a temporary favor," Mom had said. $800 a month, just until we're back on our feet." Like a fool, I had agreed. I set up an automatic transfer and hardly thought about it afterward. Every month, money left my account without me even touching it. And now, staring at Karen's Facebook post and remembering Mom's words, "We've already decided," I realized what that favor had become. Not a bridge, not a lifeline, a pipeline. They had counted on me being too obedient to cut it. But I wasn't obedient anymore. I opened my banking app, thumb hovering over the cancel button. My chest tightened. Canceling meant no going back. It meant choosing myself in a way I never had. I tapped. The screen refreshed. Transfer canceled. I took a screenshot, heart pounding, and attached it to a group text with Mom and Dad. "Since you disowned me, I won't be paying strangers' mortgage anymore." 3 minutes later, my phone rang. "Mom," I answered. Her voice was raw with panic. "Arden, what did you just do?" I canceled the transfer. "You can't do this to us," she screamed. "We need that money. Without it, we can't make our mortgage. We'll lose the house." "That sounds like a you problem, Mom." Her sobs cracked through the line. "Please, Arden. Karen and the boys are living with us now. We can't afford to feed them and keep up the payments. We need your help." "Then maybe Karen should get a job." "She's still recovering from the divorce. She needs time." "She needs income," I snapped. "She has 2 kids to feed. Dad only works part-time. That's not enough. You all need to stop leaning on me like I'm some endless well." Mom's voice broke, rising and falling like a storm. "How can you be so cruel? This is all your fault. If you just let Karen stay with you, none of this would have happened." My fault. The phrase hit me like a familiar lash, one I'd felt my whole life. But this time I didn't flinch. "No, Mom. Karen quit her job. That's nobody's fault but hers. And you chose to support her instead of telling her to be responsible. That's on you, not me. She's family," Mom wailed. "So am I," said quietly. "But that didn't stop you from disowning me when I refused to play savior. You made your choice." "We didn't mean it," she cried. "Too late," I whispered. "Goodbye, Mom." I hung up. My hands shook as I set the phone down, but instead of dread, something else bloomed. Relief. That night, I poured myself a drink and sat on my apartment balcony. The city spread below, lights blinking like constellations on Earth. The air was cool, crisp. I whispered into the dark, as if confessing to the mountains, "I'm free." But freedom carried fear too. Would they retaliate? Would Karen unleash another online attack? Would my parents show up in Denver, pounding on my door the way they had on my old house? I didn't know. All I knew was that the cord had been cut, and it wasn't just financial. It was the tether that had bound me to their chaos, their demands, their endless emergencies. The next day at work, I kept my phone on silent. Still, texts slipped through like cracks in a dam. Dad, you've gone too far this time. Karen, how dare you hang Mom out to dry? The boys are suffering because of you. Mom, we'll never forgive you for this. But forgiveness wasn't the currency I wanted anymore. Respect was. And if cutting them off was the only way to earn it, then so be it. That weekend, Lisa called. Her voice was cautious, like someone approaching a wounded animal. I heard what happened, she said. Mom told everyone you canceled the mortgage payments. Did she also mention that she disowned me in the same breath? I asked. Silence stretched. Then Lisa sighed. Yeah, she leaves that part out. We both laughed bitterly. I don't know if I did the right thing, I admitted, but I couldn't keep enabling them. I was drowning. You did the right thing, she said firmly. They'll call it selfish because it doesn't serve them, but boundaries aren't selfish. They're survival. Her words steadied me. That night, I dreamed of my childhood home, the white picket fence, the manicured lawn. But in the dream, the windows were dark, the door locked. I stood outside with a key that no longer fit. When I woke, I didn't feel fear. I felt peace. Because maybe some doors are meant to stay closed. But peace never lasted long in my family. A week later, as I was leaving work, my phone buzzed with a new voicemail. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice was not. Arden, this is Tom, your former boss. I just had the strangest conversation. Your mother came to my office today. She demanded that I either convince you to send money home or, get this, take it directly out of your paycheck and send it to her. I froze on the sidewalk, cars rushing past in a blur of headlights. Mom had gone to my old workplace, to my boss, and tried to have my paycheck stolen. My hand trembled as I held the phone. This wasn't desperation anymore. It was war. When I replayed Tom's voicemail, my knees nearly gave out. I leaned against the wall outside my apartment, gripping the phone like it might burn me. Mom had actually gone to my old office, walked in, sat across from my former boss, and tried to enlist him in stealing my wages. Even for her, this was a new low. I called Tom back immediately. He picked up on the second ring, his voice calm but weary. Arden, I figured you'd call. What exactly did she say? My throat felt raw. She showed up without an appointment, said it was urgent, demanded that I speak with her. Then she launched into a whole speech about you being irresponsible, abandoning family, and how it was my responsibility, as your employer, to fix it. I shut my eyes. Oh my God. She wanted me to either convince you to send money or dock your paycheck and send it directly to her. I told her two things. One, your personal finances are none of my business. And two, what she was suggesting sounds a lot like theft. A shaky laugh escaped me. What did she do then? She started crying, said the family was going to lose their house, that she was desperate. I told her I was sorry, but there was nothing I could do. Eventually she left. I'm so sorry she put you through that. Don't be, he said gently. But Arden, you might want to protect yourself. This doesn't feel like the end of it. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't sit still. I paced the small apartment until the floorboards creaked underfoot. The line had been crossed. Phone calls, texts, Facebook posts, I could brush those off. But showing up at my workplace, involving my boss, that was harassment. And harassment had consequences. I opened my laptop, created a new document, and began typing. Mom, Dad, and Karen. Today, my former boss contacted me to tell me Mom showed up at his office demanding he steal money from my paycheck to send to you. This is harassment, and it needs to stop immediately. The words came slowly at first, then faster, sharper. I listed every call, every text, every attempt to corner me. I attached screenshots of messages. I noted dates and times. I wrote about how Mom had declared me no longer her daughter and how I had accepted that. Any further contact will be considered harassment and will be reported to the police. I am documenting everything. The calls, the texts, and now testimony from my former boss about Mom's visit. If you continue, I will file for a restraining order. By the time I finished, my hands were trembling, but not from fear, from release. I reread it twice, making sure every word was measured and precise. No anger, no pleading, just boundaries, documented in black and white. Then I sent it to all three of them, and blocked their numbers. The silence that followed was deafening. Days passed without a single buzz on my phone. No calls, no texts, no notifications. At first, I was suspicious. Surely they were plotting something bigger, some ambush. But as the quiet stretched into a week, then two, I realized something else. They were rattled. For the first time in my life, I had threatened action that didn't come from guilt or anger, but from law. From proof. From the very system they could no longer twist in their favor. At work, I breathed easier. I no longer flinched when my phone lit up. At night, I slept deeper. Still, the ghosts lingered. I'd walk past the mirror and hear Mom's voice echo, "Selfish girl." I'd fold laundry and imagine Karen whining, "You have everything, I have nothing." But then I'd remember the email, the documentation, the line I had drawn in permanent ink, and the ghosts faded. On a Friday afternoon, Holly invited me out for drinks with the team. Normally, I would have declined, retreating into solitude, but something in me wanted to test this new life I was building. At the bar, laughter flowed freely, the kind that didn't cut or demand. I told them I'd just moved here, that my family situation was complicated. Nobody pressed, nobody judged. They just nodded and poured me another margarita. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere without sacrificing myself. That night, walking home under the glow of street lamps, I whispered into the empty air, "Maybe they'll finally stop." But even as the words left my mouth, I knew better. People like my family didn't stop. They paused. They regrouped. They waited for the next opening. And though my email had bought me peace, it was a fragile peace. A peace that could shatter with one knock on my door. Still, as I climbed into bed, I let myself savor it. The stillness, the absence of demands, the space to breathe. And I promised myself if they came for me again, I'd be ready. Because this time, I wasn't the girl who did her sister's homework. I wasn't the daughter who handed over her paychecks. This time I was someone new. Someone who knew how to fight back. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of silence. At first, it felt like the calm before a storm, the kind that hangs in the air with a metallic taste, waiting to split the sky open. I half expected Karen's name to flash across my screen at any moment, Mom's shrill voicemail demanding explanations, Dad's clipped baritone telling me what I owed the family. But nothing came. Instead, life filled the quiet. Work consumed me in a way that felt different now. Before, work had been an escape from my family's constant chaos, a refuge where I could bury myself in spreadsheets and deadlines. Now, it was more than that. It was proof I was building a life of my own. I stayed late without guilt, ate lunch with coworkers without checking my phone every 5 minutes, even joined Holly's trivia night at a dive bar downtown. We lost spectacularly, but I laughed until my sides hurt. And every time I unlocked my phone and saw no missed calls, no new messages from my family, I felt lighter. Still, the silence didn't mean the story had ended. One evening, Lisa called. Her voice carried the kind of hesitant compassion that meant she had news I wouldn't like. "Hey, cuz, how's Denver treating you?" "Better than I expected," I admitted. "What's up?" She sighed. "Your family's struggling." I closed my eyes. "How bad?" "Your dad picked up a second job, stocking shelves at a grocery store 3 nights a week, on top of his part-time office job. He looks exhausted." A pang of guilt flickered in my chest, but I forced myself to breathe through it. "And Mom?" "She's working overtime at the department store. Looks older. This whole mess has aged her, Arden." My throat tightened. "And Karen?" "She went back to work, full-time. At that call center she hates." Lisa hesitated. "She's still living with your parents, though. It's cramped. Lots of fights. The boys don't have space, and everyone's on edge." I pressed the heel of my hand against my eyes. Images flickered. Dad shuffling through aisles under fluorescent lights. Mom's shoulders slumping behind a cash register. Karen snapping at her kids in a crowded bedroom. It wasn't the first time I'd imagined the fallout of my refusal, but hearing it aloud twisted the knife. "Arden," Lisa said softly, "don't take this the wrong way, but they needed this. They had to learn they couldn't dump everything on you forever." I let out a shaky laugh. "So you're saying their suffering is a life lesson?" "I'm saying it's overdue. You've been carrying them since you were a teenager. Now they're carrying themselves, even if they don't like it." After we hung up, I sat in the dark, staring at the Denver skyline through my apartment window. Was this what freedom cost? Watching my family stumble, knowing I had the means to ease their burden, but refusing out of principle. Part of me wanted to drive back, hand Dad money for groceries, cover Mom's mortgage again, let Karen crash in my spare room. Part of me longed to be the hero they pretended I was when they needed me. But a stronger part remembered the weight of all those years, remembered Mom's words, "You're no longer our daughter." If they could cast me out when I stopped serving them, then maybe they'd never seen me as family in the first place. Maybe I'd only ever been a lifeline. 2 more weeks slipped by, and the updates from Lisa became less dire. Your dad's managing. Tired, but managing. Karen's still bitter, but she's paying bills again. And Mom, well, she still complains, but she hasn't tried to contact you. Maybe they're finally realizing you mean it this time. Her words brought a strange mix of pride and sadness. Pride that I had held my ground. Sadness that holding my ground meant watching them from a distance, as if through a foggy window. Denver began to feel like home. I discovered a small cafe near the office with the best almond croissants I'd ever tasted. The barista learned my name, scribbled hearts on my to-go cups. On weekends, I hiked mountain trails, lungs burning in the thin air, but heart swelling with something close to joy. I even caught myself humming while doing laundry, a sound so foreign it startled me. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't bracing for the next crisis. I wasn't budgeting around how much I'd have to send my parents or how many of Karen's bills I'd cover. My money was mine, my time was mine, my life was mine. But peace came with shadows too. At night, I sometimes dreamed of Jake and Tommy, Karen's boys, looking at me with confusion in their eyes. Why did Aunt Arden leave? Why won't she help us? They were innocent. They hadn't asked for this, and that guilt pressed on me hardest of all. Yet even there, I reminded myself, helping them didn't mean sacrificing myself. If I ever wanted to, I could send them birthday gifts, college funds. On my terms. Not Karen's, not Mom's. On mine. One evening, sitting on my balcony with the mountains glowing purple in the sunset, I whispered a question I hadn't dared before. Did I abandon them, or did I finally stop abandoning myself? The breeze carried no answer, but in my chest I felt a truth settle. Maybe both were true, and maybe that was okay. Because sometimes, survival looks like betrayal to those who benefited from your compliance. And sometimes, breaking away is the only way anyone learns how to stand. Still, I couldn't shake the thought. Silence never lasted forever in my family. And when the next storm came, because it would come, would I be strong enough to hold the line? 3 months had passed since I'd sent the email that threatened legal action. 3 months of quiet. 3 months of something I had never experienced before. Peace. I spent Saturday mornings at a coffee shop downtown, laptop open to apartment listings. My rent was fine, but it was temporary, a way station. I wanted permanence, something of my own that nobody could take from me, nobody could lay claim to. That morning, as steam curled from my mug, a new listing caught my eye. 2-bedroom condo, 10 minutes from the office, hardwood floors, updated kitchen, and a balcony that overlooked the mountains. I clicked through the photos, heart quickening. The view alone stole my breath. The listing said the monthly mortgage would be manageable with my salary plus rental income from my old house. For the first time, I imagined a future not weighed down by obligation, but built on possibility. On Monday, I met the realtor at the condo. The moment I stepped inside, I knew. The sunlight spilled through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the room gold. The balcony doors opened to a sweep of mountain ridges, sharp and endless. I walked across the hardwood floors, listening to the soft creak beneath my feet, and it felt like the house was listening back. "This place has been waiting for you," the realtor said with a smile. She didn't know how right she was. We spent an hour going over paperwork. My numbers checked out. Income steady, rental property solid, savings finally growing instead of draining. By evening, my offer was submitted. By the next day, accepted. When I signed the papers, I felt something break loose inside me, a tether I hadn't even realized I was still carrying. This time, I wasn't buying a house for anyone else to claim. I wasn't creating a nest my family could swoop into. This time it was mine. 2 weeks later, I stood in the empty living room, surrounded by the scent of fresh paint. My boxes sat stacked neatly against the wall, but I didn't rush to unpack. Instead, I slid the balcony doors open and stepped outside. The air was cool, sharp, laced with pine. The city stretched below like a toy village, and beyond it, the mountains stood unyielding. For a long moment, I just breathed. Then I whispered, almost reverently, "I made it." Lisa called that evening. "Congratulations, homeowner," she said warmly. Then, after a pause, "You know Karen's telling everyone you ruined her life." I laughed softly, the sound tinged with disbelief. "How did I ruin her life?" "She says if you'd just let her stay with you, she could have found an amazing job by now. Everything would be different. Or," I said dryly, "she would have spent months sitting on my couch while I paid her bills." Exactly. But she can't admit that. It's easier to blame you than admit her own choices put her here. And Mom and Dad? I asked, bracing myself. They're still working their butts off to pay bills, but they're starting to accept you're not coming back. Mom doesn't bring you up as much. Dad grumbles, but he's focused on his jobs. Her words landed like a strange relief. Painful, yes, but freeing too. Good, I said, because I'm not. That night, I unpacked a single box. Inside were framed photos. Me with coworkers at an office party, me and Lisa at a family barbecue years ago, smiling despite everything. I placed them on a shelf, then pulled out a final item, a letter I had drafted weeks ago but never sent. It was addressed to Karen. I unfolded it, reading the words, "I love you, I love the boys, but I can't save you. Not anymore." I had written it on a night when guilt nearly drove me back into the cycle, but now, standing in this new space, I realized I didn't need to send it. The message wasn't for her, it was for me. I tore the letter in half, then again, until the pieces fluttered into the trash. Later, I stepped back onto the balcony. The city lights glittered like scattered stars. The mountains loomed, eternal and untouchable. And in that vast silence, I understood something. Family wasn't about blood ties that bled you dry. Family was about choice, about love given freely, not demanded, about support that lifted, not crushed. And while my parents and Karen had cast me out, I still had Lisa. I still had myself. That was enough. I leaned against the railing, whispering a quiet vow. I love them, from here, from a distance, but I won't go back. The wind stirred, cool against my face, carrying the scent of pine. And for the first time in my life, I believed my own words. Because I wasn't the girl left behind anymore. I was the woman who chose her own life. And from my room with a mountain view, I knew. The quiet was mine to keep.